So, welcome everybody. This is our very first webinar for 2024. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and I'm delighted to introduce you to my dear colleague, Lovro. How are you, Lovro?
Hey everyone, I'm also super happy to be here and hope for a very great first webinar of 2024.
So if you're wondering why are we doing this, basically, we are a bunch of designers working for the financial industry. And since 2 years, we had a dream. What if we establish contact with other designers working in the same industry? And basically, we just start sharing our experience. And that's why we have a very special guest. He's Berlin-based, representing one startup that is, in a way, reinventing the way of wealth management. He is the UI UX lead. His name is Abhay Seal. So welcome, Abhay. How are you?
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for calling me here. Happy to be here.
Yes, we are very excited, and you are so calm. It's great. So I think you prepared for us a very interesting topic. But before we go and jump into presentation mode, Lovro, could you tell us what to expect for today's expert talk?
So today we're going to have a short but concise presentation from Abhay about building trust, especially in UI and UX. It's going to take about half an hour, and afterwards we will have some time for questions. So please feel free to write your comments, write your questions in the YouTube chat. We're happy to answer them after the presentation.
Yes, absolutely. So Abhay, so we know that you are Berlin-based, but where are you originally coming from? So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, Daniel. I'm originally from India. I am from a place called Chandigarh, which is north of Delhi, but I've moved to Germany around 6 years back. And yeah, I've been ever since here.
And how would you compare the way of working from India and I don't know, in Berlin with all those tech giants? Is there like a big difference?
Yeah, I mean, the ways of working is a little different because the more you go in Southeast Asian, there's a different work culture, I would say. With Germany, I have experience of my past bosses telling me just go out at 5 because there's a law of strict law that you have to go out because it's otherwise anyone can sue him. So that was also very kind and interesting experience, which I don't think I will ever have in India.
Wow. I feel you. I know what you mean. Okay, so coming back to the topic that you will present, I think all of us designers working in the financial industry, we are aware of it, and that is trust. And I think it's a big challenge how to build trust. It's very easy to say that, but we are very looking forward for your presentation. So basically, the stage is yours. And anything to add?
No, I hope for a very good presentation and a lot of questions coming in on YouTube.
Yeah, so remember, if you have any questions, just write on the chat and we will take them at the end, if that's okay for you, Abhay. Great.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I'll just get started.
Perfect.
Right. All right. Before we set the context, I think a little bit about me. So I'm senior UX UI designer. I'm currently working at Liquid, as Daniel introduced. I've been in user experience around 6 years, just working mostly on enterprise software, banking, and now in investments. As a designer, I think I value more holistic and system thinking. So I'm quite detail oriented. I think I personally like complex software environments. That's where I've worked mostly on, and I think that I enjoy that. Apart from when I'm not designing, I'm also into playing music. Yeah, just a little bit about me. So basically, at Liquid, I lead the product design initiatives. So we have 2 or 3 digital products, and we are a small yet ambitious design team of 2 to 3 designers. And we are just trying to bring Liquid to a more design mature startup, you could say. But what is Liquid? So Liquid is a digital asset manager for high net worth individuals. So we provide investment solutions for, you could say, wealthy individuals. Currently, we have 2.5 billion assets under management, around 100 employees, and 8,000 clients. As an investment provider, Liquid, you can classify the solutions in mostly in overview in 2 buckets. One is wealth management, one is private markets. Wealth management basically means bonds, stocks, hedge funds, and all the instruments that you have in the public markets, while private markets includes things like private equity and venture capital. Right. So for my topic today, it's designing for investments, and I'll be talking more on how to build trust in onboarding experiences. So this is where we were last year. I joined Liquid around 1.5 year ago, and this is where we stood back then. This is our onboarding platform where we are trying to help the new clients and existing clients to have a journey of the onboarding where they are configuring things for their portfolios. So things like adding risk or investment amounts or seeing specific personal data. So as you can see on the screen, this is quite something to start with. So there were a lot of things that were not working already, and it's just, I think, very safe to say that it's not enough care has been given to design a very thought through experience. So things like the flows were not very thought through. There were a lot of bugs, a lot of mismatch on the flow side of things. There were a lot of redundant screens. So basically, more screens telling the same exact story. Or on the other side, there were also over communication to make it more complex. Things like telling users backend processes, right? There are a lot of instances of data duplications, right? So they were at in the onboarding journey that we had. A lot of instances were there where user was entering multiple data at this different points in the journey. So, for example, you have registration data submission where you are entering the surname, first name, email again in the same as the same fashion, but in different points in the journey, one before and one after. Similarly, asking about the account type over here, for instance, is also seen somehow not thought through. So there were a lot of these instances or these micro instances where things were like repeating, and since it was already quite a lot complicated to build, it was not reciprocated in a good manner on the client side. So for the clients, they had to do more work for simple things. So for instance, the interaction patterns, they cause more fatigue, basically endless loops of doing the same action, making the forms very, very long, navigating back and forth in state and substate was a major challenge. And adding to that, the complexity of financial understanding and regulations, compliance, and all of that is cherry on top, I would say. Um, as I said, I think not enough design care was given before. And basically, the onboarding experience was more like what our operations team basically did in the ground. It was not sophisticated software or intelligent software who could think about flows in more detail and make process very seamless for the customers. On the UI side of things, I think it's quite evident here that there were bunch of things that are not working, be it red headlines, font styles, you have overflowing text, information hierarchy, charts that are not making sense for the screen or story that is being communicated in that interface. Accessibility, I think, it's definitely not prioritized, was not prioritized. And data also confirmed that. So we had almost completion rate of 41% and drop off rate of 59%. That's just bad because that's being a digital wealth management. We wanted to be at the top of the game in that sense that we have at least this major part of onboarding that is digital onboarding, a seamless experience for our clients, which was not reflected here. Sorry. So as the clients were already also telling us it's a lengthy process, it's impersonal, and it's just kind of disheartening to see that we get such kind of feedback, obviously. So UX had become like this point of frustration and a source of distrust amongst our clients. I would even dare to say that if it was below today's product design standards. So over the past year, we have been working incredibly hard to kind of redesign or redefine basically how financial user experience is for our clients digitally. So we began simplifying flows. So we had a lot of financial complexity, being it entering data for the customer or having wealth calculation, anti-money laundering, a lot of financial regulations. So we had to mitigate that and try to make the process more client-centric with all of these constraints. We began simplifying things, but then was a hard process, but it's just become easier and easier and easier. So we had to look at things very holistically because this onboarding experience should act as a kind of template for registration phase for our customers. So for instance, a customer would create an account, enter investment amounts, monthly installment, choose what kind of account type he likes, and then start entering the data being personal details, address, tax IDs, so on and so forth. In this process, we had these backend logics where we basically were calculating if the wealth is enough or not, or if there's a case of anti-money laundering or not needed in the experience. So there was a lot of iterations on that. And we began to simplify things with a lot of cross-functional collaboration, a lot of navigating through compliance and lawyers and financial complexity, but also getting the basics right from the UX side to have a seamless flow that just works for our clients and not is a burden. So we began building up those design basics. So we removed a lot of noise. We start building more context for those product designs. We started to think very thoroughly about the experience and the UIs. That it just doesn't work, but also it is very delightful to use. We also started a new design system from scratch. We call it Nest to try to make scalable and accessible UI from the scratch. So over these months and a short period of time and with small team, we went from kind of this to that. So there were a lot of things that were happening, being a design system, the user flows, and a lot of hard work has been done, I think, from the design, the product, and the tech to make it as a holistic and a brand new experience for our clients. And it worked. So it's just not pretty picture. From our current onboarding, we have almost 2 times better results than our previous onboarding. So we have completion rate for about 88%. So all of our 1,000 clients or most of our 1,000 clients for the new product that we have were able to seamlessly go through the onboarding without any hesitation, without any so much customer care calls that they're not able to figure it out, and they were able to onboard with us. So Not only that, it's very nice to see the designs when they come to life and how they impact the life of the customers, especially in the ecosystem of investments. So this is a nice quote that our customer gave and reached out to us personally by email. So it was not even set up to have the feedback, but the customer himself felt quite nice and wanted to give proactive feedback to us. So that was also quite nice to see. So basically, we were able to launch our new product, which is called PE Next, with speed and quality. We were able to onboard all of our 1,000 plus clients within a short period of time, and that too seamlessly. Our business target, which was a bit lower than 50 million, was also achieved. So I would say more importantly, the trust is just starting to build up for us. But you may ask, like, why trust is so important over here. So I would just like to give a visualization or an example in this. From an investment experience point of view, basically it happens kind of that you are doing some kind of digital onboarding where you're entering your goals of investment, amount, risk, and other financial details. You get a kind of investment proposal. Usually, a lot of people think about it, consult with their peers or tax advisors, and so on and so forth, and then start investing. Now, very important point to think about is that once they start investing, usually they have lock-in periods. So once they have lock-in periods, the time to liquidity is very, very important to know. That's the whole holistic experience from the user point of view. That from it's just not digital onboarding, but it's the entire investment experience. So during the lock-in period, which they can't do anything about, it goes through basically market volatility where things are going up and down and they don't have any control over. And the time of liquidity is the point where they actually get the expected returns. So if you see what I mean is that like it's just not one way street because it's a long cycle over here. And what I think binds everything together is trust. It's a trust that the returns are matching the expectations happen in digital onboarding. So when it comes to parking money for a long period of time, the customers are they're not receiving immediate feedback on the outcome. What I mean is that with the investment overall cycle being so long, which is years, it's kind of not so comparable with kind of banking features like payments or doing a self-service. The experience of investment is very, very long. So you kind of have to build trust along the journey to give more value and give consistent value to the customer. So when investing, the present becomes restricted because of lock-in period, while the future becomes uncertain because of lows and highs of the market. So trust becomes that latch that investors hold on to. So, as I said, it requires consistent efforts to be won over, and it also helps the user experience point of view to navigate some emotion biases or life circumstances. But you may ask, like, how do we build this trust digitally? First is seek and give clarity. What I mean by this is that once we are trying to learn something quite complex, that's already hard. And then to explain something to our clients, it's even more harder because you need to get more context on what is important and what is not to communicate. And there are a lot of ways and a lot of things to communicate to the clients, especially in investments, because things are not just one way street. Everything is connected to each other. It depends on what angle you look at it, right? So first seek clarity for yourself and then give clarity to clients. How I personally like to do it is through visual learning. For instance, there are a lot of these charts about basics of investment with return and risk or return and volatility, and it's a fairly straightforward concept that the more risk you are willing to take, the higher chances you have for return, right? And that's not the case with things like when you add private equity to your portfolio, for example. So I'm trying to communicate here is that with visual learning, just try to build this experience in mind that something can be visually communicated in a much more easier form, since also we are designers that are visual learners. So we try to make these visualizations or like this learning experience for ourselves so that we can help the clients better. But in this example, I personally like this one because I've set the stage for return and risk. So that's on the left hand side, you see that's more what happens usually. But that's not true for the second side, where there's an addition of something in your portfolio. Other point is to give contextual clarity or education, you could say. There's a screen where we ask our customers, what risk profile do you identify with? So it could be conservative, balanced, or profit oriented. You can also treat it as something like low, medium, high. But it's not just enough for us to give that just these are the options and you have to choose one. It's more of contextual clarity that, okay, why are these important and what repercussions will you have if you select one? So for instance, we have this drawer component over here in this UI that tells that, okay, for if you choose conservative portfolio, it will be with the expected return of this, and your investment could perhaps look like this, could grow to this, and but in a very bad year, it could go down like that. So through examples to contextual situations, you generate more clarity for the customers. I think it's since the launch of ChatGPT and other tools, I think it's so helpful for brainstorming ideas. This is just an example of visualization of how you can communicate return and variable at risk, which is another form of risk, in so many different forms. So use AI to your leverage in brainstorming ideas, which are already very complex to understand, but try to break it down through help of these advanced tools. Second is basically find areas to improve transparency. So I really believe that every interaction is a chance to build trust. So I'll give an example here. So usually there's a practice in onboardings is that you have a question and then you have some answers and you have a continue. Pretty straightforward process. Perhaps there's few things here or there, but mostly that's the format. However, investments, I would say, are special cases because this answer that we are expecting the user to fill have an impact on their investments. But a lot of times it is not elaborated or explained what it actually means for them. So we have this how much risk you want to take, where our customers gave us the feedback. What is high for one person might not be high for the other. So you have to be precise, but then again, you have to mitigate that you are clearly communicating the highs or the lows of the risk or the returns in the scenario. So something like with increasing risk, what exactly impact you would see. So something like with 40% or if you increase to 40 to 60% risk allocation, you would see expected return of let's say X amount, while in a really bad year you could lose up to Y amount. And those are dynamic changing based on how much risk you can afford. So it's very visual, it's very clear that based on your decisions right now, it could be what exactly the impact is in the future. So it's the nearest projection into the future, what their decision would lead in kind of best and the worst scenario. Other thing is using data to address the context. So using things like these calculators to have a very transparent way of communicating to the clients that you can choose whatever you want and you can configure the way you want and then tell us and we will make that happen for you. So this calculator, for instance, is doing with initial installment, monthly savings plans, and then you have the horizons, and then you can simulate between what these numbers are for you, and then you can simulate good, medium, and bad years. And that also is explained very explicitly. Other thing is value simplicity. I think it's very easy to say, but very hard to do. So reduce efforts definitely creates more value for everyone, not only users, but for us designers as well. It's promoting simplicity is something that internally we do as designers, but I feel that design has this wonderful way of poking the stakeholders. Poking, I mean, not physically poking, but in the sense that we poke the stakeholders in a way that why things are a certain way, why not? And a person who would value client-centric experience would automatically, I think, self-reflect those choices. I think trust also is a interesting thing because it's also built inside out. It's not just on the client one. So we started our design system very recently, and then that was also is very interesting experience, very closely collaborating with developers, and being very close on the design system side of things. So we had like this very nice culture at Liquid. We try to make design props, for example, in our documentation. So design props are nothing but just React props, but they are design props for us because that's the way we communicate to the developers that these are the configurations we want for the comps. So what kind of variants you want, what kind of states you want, anything that is optional or not, size variants, so on and so forth. So it's more like very close collaborating with developers, communicating in a way that is valuable to both sides, and making sure that that trust is built within the team as well, because it affects the outside trust to the clients. Accessibility is also another very important point we have been tackling. I think has been EU laws have been already kind of drafted, and it will be sooner or later. Every company would be sooner or later impacted in some sense, and we are doing our bit as well to have the more accessible solution because our clients are also in an average age range more older than 50, so it becomes very, very important for us in the upcoming flows. Right. And I think the other thing is the initiatives to learn together. I think that creates a lot of shared understanding of what is a good design. Most importantly, why is a good design. So we are trying to also build that culture that we review the designs together. It could be our designs, it could be something else that we find that we think is quite good. So there's a build of trust from design sense that I think could also help internally. Right, so key takeaways of this short presentation was seek and give clarity through the visual learning and contextual clarity. Use AI to augment your learning. Try to make things more visually, especially when it's a complicated matter. Doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, but if we are more visual, I think it's more I think valuable somehow for the clients to visualize things rather than just read logs of text. Find areas to improve wherever you can improve the transparency in the entire experience. It doesn't need to be exactly what I'm showing in the screen that you always show the impact of the decision, but it's just one idea. Transparency could also mean that you're transparent with the cost of services. You're transparent with if something is not happening because of a certain answer, you are directly communicating it to the customers. And most importantly is showing a tangible way if possible, and use of data to create more value over here. Um, and have a high standards for simplicity. Um, because I think with so many things, with constraints, with a lot of other things happening with design, I think it's so important to have and practice it, preach it, and also help others to see the value of it as well. Build internal trust, which is also very important for client trust, and bridge this development and design gap through better processes and kind of new initiatives. And thank you very much for listening. That's me.
Thanks a lot, Abhay. It was great listening to you. You have a very smooth and calm voice. And now it's time to ask you some questions from our chat, and also some that we have prepared for you. So I'm gonna start first with my own question that I was thinking about while you were presenting. I saw that you redesigned a lot of the interfaces to become more interactive to, for example, the calculator that you showed. And what would interest me, because you were also talking about data and how, for example, the drop-off rate improved drastically, and the completion rate of your onboarding processes. What would interest me is, are you guys also tracking how much time people spend on, for example, on your platforms, how much they interact with those interactive elements, and if they actually build more trust? Yeah, that's the question, basically.
That's definitely some data we have been playing around with, but there are, I think, more rooms of improvement to actually see the average time span of the whole onboarding, seeing specific sections of how much, as you said, people are spending times on, so we can figure out if there's something not understandable for the clients. We address them. So we have some data that we already, I think, somewhere, but we have to still dig a lot deeper than what we have at the moment.
Nice, thanks a lot. Daniel, do you have another question?
Yeah, I have like three more, and I also have one from my side, but I will start with this one. It says, could you please give an example from your experience of, so what exactly means for you poking the stakeholders? So doing that, how did that lead to simplicity?
Right, it's so much interesting question because it's highly contextual to the business environment you are in. I would say that this means basically not literally poking the business stakeholders that this is wrong, but in a very smart or elegant way, try to communicate that how would a certain X feature or a flow or a design will help the customers to do X. That X could be anything that objective that the feature is trying to build. And the chances are, if that business stakeholders value customer experience, they probably are going to think about it. And if you have a strong argument, they probably will nudge their answers or nudge their, you could say, thoughts somehow in that centric approach. So, for example, at Liquid, we had this strict process, or which is more aligned to the what we do at the operation side. But as I said, it was not so client centric, and I just had to basically poke people or just poke that thought that okay, why are we not doing this? And I just left it there. So there were already some initiatives, some rethinking of what has not been thought before. So as I said, it's very contextual situation. Maybe you have the business leaders who might not know the value of the design. So you would have to create that value first, and then you would have to do this. But yeah, that's what I mean by poking the stakeholders a bit.
Very nice. Thank you so much. We have another question for you, and it says, so what are the users' biggest fears when it comes to investing, and how do you, let's say, fight them in the interface?
Right. So biggest assumptions. Oh, sorry, biggest confusions.
Fears,
Biggest
like,
fears,
yeah.
right? I think this is also interesting because our clients are mostly German based, and it's
Mhm,
very interesting because money is very contextual. It's very personal. So everybody has idea of how to invest and how much risk they can take. But there's something called perceived risk and there's something called calculated risk. So telling that the difference between them, it's also jobs of startups like Liquid, and what they have, I think, is more skepticism. So that skepticism is
mhm,
also related to trust, right?
mhm,
So it's not just digital trust, but it's more performance of investments or reputation of the brand, reputation across partners. So this is all this mix of factors that helps remove those skepticism away. So I would say
mhm,
they're more sometimes skeptical, and also it depends on a person's investment knowledge. People who would think that, let's say, I put money in a fund and it goes down the next day, they would say it's absolutely horrible. But maybe there's another person who would say like, yeah, that's just a market volatility and it will improve over time. So it's also depends on how much you understand investments.
mhm. Yeah, and I assume it's also like over time, like if me as a user, I'm using your application, right? And every time I go into a flow, I start it, I finish it, the application is stable, I have no ugly surprises. Then this is building also this reputation that you are mentioning, right? So building a stable, robust application, that's sometimes just the foundation, right,
Mhm.
for building trust.
Maybe I can jump into this. What would interest me is how do you think does a startup compare in terms of trust to a long established company? Can you actually build trust with digital interfaces alone, or do you have to really be um, existent as a company for a long time to build trust with people? What's your take on that?
I think again saying this to I personally feel that digital trust is a subset of the bigger trust, and those factors like reputation, investment performance, capital ranking, all of that is a big factor when a customer kind of segregates between a startup and a big player over there. But there are some instances where big players are not so sometimes innovative, aggressive in making digital solutions. So that's where I think one point is for startups. But I think there's always this trade-offs where customers would definitely need to make that, okay, which is better or not, but that is always contextual to their needs of
Mhm.
Mhm,
what they want to do at the first place.
mhm. We have one more question here, and it says, how hard was it to design a user-friendly interface while also ensuring users have control over their data and privacy settings?
It was, I would say, very interesting ride because, yeah, I remember the number of iterations we had because it was not just like we had the sleekest idea of the flow and the interface and everything, and it just went, we just went with it. It was so much of iterations based on lawyers, compliance, things that you can even show on the interface. So we have to be absolutely unbiased and we can't nudge the customer. I'll give you a very simple example. Some things like even the active states of buttons, that is also nudging the customers. So
Mhm.
you have to really be very, very unbiased, try to be neutral. But then again, if you're not, if you are, if you want to explain complicated stuff, it gets
Mhm,
very, very hard. So the answer I'm trying to say over here is that there's no perfect process, obviously, but what I know for sure is there's hard work for so many other people or so many other teams that brought their own initiatives and values and then try to build something. So it's definitely you can't, as a designer, can't build on your by yourself, basically.
mhm. I have a question. Like, are you looking for inspiration outside financial applications? If
Yeah, I
yes,
mean,
can you give an example of something that you try to implement from somewhere else?
well, I think it's also that's funny because when I tried that, the original design got changed after after some time. But I think talking about outside investments, I'm mostly seeing more on the finance sector. So it's not investments or wealth
Hmm.
management, but it's more banking. It could be payroll management. It could be anyone that has thought through about experiences. Some names obviously comes to my mind, which is Deal is one. You have
Hmm.
Revolut is one. You have a lot of these American startups also in
Yeah, we
this
have
kind of
Leo. Yes.
space. Yeah, yeah, right.
Mhm.
So there's very thought through experiences. So that inspires obviously us because we are still a very, very small team at Liquid designers. So we have to keep ourselves inspired and updated based on the trends in the industry. So yeah, we try to do that.
Very cool. Yeah, we had a deal during the first edition of our George UX conference. He's a great design leader. I highly recommend you to watch his talk. You can find it on our YouTube channel on the playlist. He was talking about how to scale, I think, your design team. Really, really nice talk. Um, I have another question. If you don't have any
I don't
from your side, okay.
I don't have.
So I saw your kind of redesign. So from going from this red font and very bold use of colors, that immediately I could see the brand, right? So that a clear distinction between, uh, let's say, the brand personality. And going in favor of accessibility, that you go into this high contrast and readability, and this, unfortunately, there is a risk of becoming a little bit generic, right? How are you fighting this so that you don't look like any other application?
Right. We are working, I would say, very, very hard on this to make ourselves a distinctive premium brand. It's on the works, and this is something that has been created in a very, you could say, short span of time. So we just didn't have time to think about all the brand codes and a lot of how visuals are coming to life and make ourselves somehow distinctive in the market. Where, as you beautifully put, also you can't. There will be time. I think there will a lot of the softwares or the SaaS-based tools could probably look almost similar-ish bold statement, but
Hmm.
like just if you know what
Mhm.
I mean.
Yes.
So you definitely want to make ourselves quite distinctive, but definitely not want to compromise usability and
Yeah.
UX side of things.
Yeah.
But
One,
that's also on the works.
one colleague just wrote that just even using a serif on the calculator, somehow this is giving you trust. So
Automatically, yeah.
automatically, yeah,
It's
very
like
clever.
you read a newspaper that
Right.
is here for a long, long time, right?
Thing I'm also a big fan of this Swiss typography, which are crisp.
Mhm.
So if you see that font and you expand it to a very large height, you will still see it's not kind of very bold like Montserrat or something. It's still crisp. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's interesting. How do we play with the brand?
And if I may ask, hey, in terms of the communication with the top management, so how much do you think they are design driven? So are they quite open? So how many barriers or doors you need to cross in order to get an approval?
Yes, I think since it's a startup, the reach is very there's not so much hierarchies, I would say, like you would find
Okay.
in the big companies. But I already see that after I'm joining and I'm kind of building, and also the team is scaling design and just making very delightful designs. The design standard in our founders and also the management team is just getting higher and higher and higher. So previous when I joined Liquid, I basically did some, I don't know, it's just some small CSS change, but that was also very, 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 very nice for everyone. But now if I do that, that's not up to the standards because we have just consistently just driven and given value. So it's improving, it's changing from business stakeholder point of view. They really like simplicity because with finance investment, there's so much to explain to the customers, and last thing they want is to overwhelm or confuse the customers. So from that point, simplicity point of view, they really appreciate design in that sense.
And maybe before we wrap up this session, are you looking for new roles? Like what kind of designers or researchers or copywriters are you looking for someone in particular?
Yeah, we are. It's in the talks, so I can't disclose more information. But like usually, I think it goes. I think quite true with a lot of startups. It's the way you learn a lot and you also contribute a lot. The impact is direct, right? And you need a person who is systems thinker, obviously, because of the design system side of things, to work with complexity, to understand complexity at a bit faster rate. I would say it could also be overwhelming for some. So those kind of skill set is, I think, common across those
Yeah.
roles.
I intentionally asked this because I notice and I experience myself in different work environments that when companies scale up, they normally go for more developers, and the developer designer ratio is not that even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah.
will
I
never be
mean,
the same, but
yeah, I think there's also one asterisk to it because, yeah, you could say developer design ratio would be 1:10, let's say, but it depends on the company's, what does the company do? So let's say if it's a backend service provider, API management, so on and so forth, they probably would need lesser designers. But if a company wants to prioritize user experience, usually nowadays, I would say the ratio is getting smaller. So it depends what company wants to prioritize and what does it do.
yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good wrap. Do you wanna share a bit news about the conference
Yes,
that is
so
coming up?
if you manage to stay till the end, so we would like to invite you to check the third edition of the George UX conference. This is happening in Vienna and remote on the 5th of November. We will have incredible speakers, so we are very proud to have a very unique and powerful speaker lineup. We have speakers from Revolut, Wise, really like top-notch players, and we're also looking for a top audience. So if you are working on the financial industry, please feel free to join. We still have some on-site tickets, so please grab them till they are available. If not, there is a live stream.
Yeah, and the live stream is gonna be happening also on YouTube again. If you want, you can rewatch all the talks from the previous editions on our YouTube. And if you like the live stream today and the webinar, please also subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow our George Labs channel a little bit more. And yeah, that's it from our side.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abhay. It was a very nice presentation. Hope you also enjoyed being here, and see you around.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Have a great afternoon.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.